1 year, 1 ship. No planet stops, no reset button. Are you surviving in a 1,187-meter CIS droid-run nightmare, or on a Pelta, where the mess hall doesn't feel like detention? This is a home tour, and we're ranking which cruisers you can actually live on without losing your mind. These are the 10 Star Wars cruisers you'd actually want to call home. Number 10. The Recusant-class light destroyer. If you're scrolling through galactic listings and you see a 1,187-meter-long Recusant pop-up, just know you're not buying a home, you're leasing a separatist industrial accident. This thing was built to be run by about 300 crew, because the real workforce is automation, droid brains, and a ship-wide attitude problem. It can haul roughly 10,000 tons of cargo and carry up to around 40,000 battle droids, which tells you the floor plan is basically storage racks, conduit tunnels, and whatever corner the AI didn't claim for itself. It does have a Class 2 hyperdrive with a Class 12 backup, so yes, you can get places quickly. And yes, if your main drive throws a tantrum mid-jump, your backup option is the galactic equivalent of walking home in wet socks. Consumables can stretch to about 2 years, but living here for a year means every day feels like day one inside a factory stairwell. The layout is long, skeletal, and cold, with those endless access panels and that constant droid system hum that makes your teeth feel like they're syncing to the ship's heartbeat. This is the kind of CIS monster you see in the Clone Wars, orbiting trouble with munificent escorts nearby. The kind of platform Grievous uses like a disposable tool, because comfort was never on the purchase order. And the real fine print is what happens when something glitches. On a ship like this, you don't call engineering and get friendly tech with a hydrospanner. You end up negotiating with the ship itself, like you're trying to calm down an astromech the size of a city block that just decided your life support settings are optional. If your pride to dock score matters, this one is a straight 0, because nobody pulls a Recusant into a public port, unless they want every pilot on the concourse to start updating their will. Number 9. The Acclimator-class assault ship. Now, if the Recusant is a hostile skeleton, the Acclimator is a 752-meter marching drum that never stops beating. This is a cruiser built around one job: deliver an invasion, and everything about your daily life gets dragged into that mission, whether you like it or not. The crew sits around 700, but the ship is designed to support a payload that can include roughly 16,000 clone troopers, plus vehicles, dropships, and constant launch cycles. So your year on board feels like living next to an airport that's also a barracks, that's also a warehouse. It runs a fast Class 0.6 hyperdrive, because it's meant to arrive on schedule, not drift somewhere scenic and rediscover yourself. Cargo capacity is huge in the only way the military counts cargo: tens of thousands of tons of gear, supplies, and rolling hardware that needs to hit a beachhead and keep moving. The armament is blunt and practical: heavy turbo lasers and defensive systems meant to keep you alive long enough to open the ramps and start the ugly part. And the ramps are the problem. Every day you hear them cycling, testing, sealing, unsealing, like the ship is constantly clearing its throat. Anyone who remembers Geonosis knows exactly what this hull represents: the moment the Republic stops being speeches and becomes boots on sand. Living here means you fall asleep to the vibration of engines idling and wake up to announcements, hangar calls, and the distant clatter of equipment getting shoved into place again. Privacy is a struggle because space is always being used for readiness, and the ship never truly powers down emotionally. The vibe isn't home, it's standby. Even if you survive the year, you'll flinch every time you hear a loudspeaker for the rest of your life, because your brain will assume someone just yelled all troops to the main bay. Number 8. The Arquitens-class light cruiser. The Arquitens look sleek in the holo brochure, around 325 meters of dagger-shaped authority, but you move in and realize you're living inside a wedge. Crew figures often land around 100 officers plus enlisted personnel, and the ship feels like it was designed for command presence first and human comfort, somewhere around priority number 12. Cargo is modest, usually in the neighborhood of about 1,000 tons depending on the configuration, which means you're not storing a lifetime of supplies, you're storing what the patrol schedule says you're allowed to store. Hyperdrive is a respectable Class 2 with a typical Class 12 backup, so it can chase, redeploy, and keep a tight leash on a sector without begging for an escort. Armament is exactly what you expect from a light cruiser that wants to punch above its weight. Commonly, 4 dual turbo laser cannons plus 4 dual laser cannons, and that loadout shapes the whole interior, because every corridor, every system, every shift exists to keep those guns fed, cooled, and calibrated. If you're a Rebels era fan, you've seen this ship show up like a smug knife in Imperial hands, the kind of hull that projects authority without paying for a full Star Destroyer. Living inside it means the best views go to the bridge and the guns, and everyone else gets artificial lighting and recycled air. Your quarters feel tight, the corridors feel narrow, and after a few months, you'll develop a genuinely embarrassing emotional attachment to the one viewport you pass on the way to mess. The good news is the Arquitens is practical, systems are straightforward, parts are known, and you don't need a Mon Cal artisan to explain why your panel is blinking. The bad news is you will always feel the ship. Smaller hulls transmit vibration and noise like gossip, so when something drifts out of calibration, you don't just read it on a console, you feel it in your feet. Number 7. The Dreadnought-class heavy cruiser. This is the Legends listing that comes with history baked into the bulkheads. A 600-meter-old guard bruiser that's served under so many flags, it feels like it has opinions about your decor. The numbers are immediately insane in a very specific way. Standard operation can demand somewhere between about 8,105 and 16,000 crew, which turns your home into a floating municipality with uniforms. If it's slave-rigged and automated, you can drop to around 2,200. But any deep-cut fan hears that and immediately thinks of the Katana fleet disaster, because automation on this scale has a very dramatic track record in this universe. Cargo is solid at around 9,000 metric tons, and consumables run about 1 to 2 years, which is the first reason it even qualifies as a long-term live aboard. Hyperdrive depends on the era. Early versions crawl at Class 4, later refits upgrade to Class 2, with a Class 6 backup, and that single detail changes your whole year. A slow ship means long patrol stretches where routine becomes religion. A faster refit means you get redeployed more often, which sounds exciting until you're trying to keep a consistent sleep cycle and the ship keeps changing the time zone on your soul. Armament is classic bruiser math. 10 medium turbo lasers, 20 light quad turbo lasers, 20 heavy laser cannons, and you'll often see ion cannons or warhead mods if the owner prefers captures over debris fields. Living here is all about hierarchy. Officers get space and calm. Junior enlisted get stacked bunks, and the ship's architecture makes sure nobody forgets who gets what. The real issue is the constant vibration under power, like the ship is quietly shaking out old anger through the deck plates. It's survivable, it's storied, it's the kind of hull Thrawn would drag back into relevance without blinking. But if you want your home to feel restful, this one makes you earn every minute of peace. Number 6. The Vindicator-class heavy cruiser. Here's the Imperial option that's grim, but surprisingly livable. A wedge around 673 meters that exists because not every governor can afford a full Star Destroyer and still wants to ruin someone's week. The crew sits around 2,551 plus, roughly 400 troops, which is a healthier ratio than the truly miserable troop haulers. And you feel that in the corridors right away, because you're not constantly shoulder-checking strangers just to reach the refresher. Cargo is around 8,000 metric tons. Consumables can stretch to about 18 months, and that's a huge quality of life point, because it means you're not running to port every other minute like a freighter with commitment issues. Hyperdrive is Class 2, and the sublight package is built for real operations. 5 ion engines pushing a ship that wants to patrol, escort, and respond without needing to consult a budget committee. The armament is dense and practical, about 25 light turbo lasers, 20 light quad turbo lasers, a full spread of point defense laser cannons and light ion cannons, and 3 tractor beam projectors at the bow for grabbing anything that tries to flee. Then, you get the big lifestyle feature, a full wing of 72 TIE fighters. Even if you personally hate TIEs, hangar decks create rhythm, pilots have culture, tech crews have routines, and suddenly, the lower decks feel like a working community instead of a dead hallway. Post-Endor warlords loved ships like this because they were cheaper than the big iconic symbols and still terrifying. And you can feel that design intent. It's built to be run with discipline, checklists, and daily systems tests that actually get done. It's still Imperial inside, strict, orderly, a little joyless. But you won't feel like the ship is trying to punish you for being a living organism. Number 5. The Hammerhead-class corvette. This is the blue-collar listing that somehow ends up feeling warmer than ships twice its size. The Hammerhead line is messy across eras, but the version you're living on typically sits somewhere around 315 to 424 meters, with a tiny crew around 35, and that low crew count changes everything. You don't have a small city aboard, you have a team, which means the ship can develop an actual personality that isn't just regulations and alarms. These hulls started life with civilian practicality in their DNA, tugboat and transport routes, then got dragged into war when the galaxy stopped being polite. The iconic Hammerhead cockpit section is heavily armored like a battering ram, which makes sense when the ship's job used to involve pushing things that didn't want to be pushed. The cargo capacity varies by refit, but tends to be very respectable for the crew size. Enough to store supplies, spare parts, and still keep a workshop that doesn't feel like you're repairing the ship inside a closet. Hyperdrive details shift across models, so the honest pitch is that you buy this ship for sturdiness and space, not for being the fastest commute in the core. The Hammerhead Corvette Lightmaker, shoving an ion-disabled Star Destroyer into another and into the shield gate, is the most working-class highlight reel moment in the saga. Like a tow operator casually rearranging 2 luxury vehicles and saving the whole mission. Living here means defined shifts, real mess time, recreation corners that exist because somebody once believed crews deserve morale, and captain's quarters that can actually feel like a room instead of a bunker. The trade-off is constant adaptation. Civilian conversions mean you're always swapping parts, fabricating brackets, and making something fit. But it's the kind of upkeep that builds pride because you're not just surviving inside a war machine, you're maintaining a home with your own hands. Number 4. The Imperial-class Star Destroyer. The Imperial-class Star Destroyer is a monster of the galaxy. Stretching 1,600 meters from bow to stern, this ship is the Empire. The steel backbone of its navy, a symbol of dominance across countless star systems. It doesn't just move through space, it commands it. Aboard are 37,085 crew members and 9,700 stormtroopers. That's over 46,000 personnel packed inside one vessel, a floating fortress where every meter holds 23 lives, explaining why it always feels overcrowded, chaotic, and alive. In battle, it's a nightmare. Armed with 60 heavy turbolaser batteries and 60 ion cannons, the Star Destroyer can cripple capital ships, punch through planetary shields, and leave enemy fleets dead in the water. 10 tractor beam projectors can yank ships from hyperspace or drag fleeing vessels into its cavernous hangar. And with 72 TIE fighters, plus shuttles and landing craft on board, one Star Destroyer alone can enforce an entire system-wide blockade. Defensively, it's just as formidable. Its ray and particle shields, powered by command tower domes, absorb devastating hits. Beneath that, Durasteel armor adds another layer of protection. But once those shields drop, the ship becomes dangerously vulnerable, as the Battle of Endor proved. Living conditions depends on who you are. For enlisted crew, it's bare survival. Bunks packed 5 to 10 per room, each space just 2 meters by 1 meter. Not enough beds for everyone, so crew rotate sleep shifts. Galleys serve up standardized ration packs, with lines stretching for hours. There's enough consumables for 1 year of autonomous operation, but water's so tightly rationed that most crew get 1 shower per week. No windows, no sunlight. Just steel, machinery, and the constant hum of the war machine. Officers, though, live in another galaxy. Private quarters, real beds, improved food. Sometimes even viewports. The class divide isn't just social, it's architectural. And keeping all this running? A small army of technicians, thousands of them, constantly maintaining engines, shields, and weapons. Because one failure in this ecosystem of war could take out an entire deck. Living here for a year feels like living inside a well-run building with competent management. The kind where maintenance requests don't vanish into space and the ship doesn't punish you for existing. Number 3. The Pelta-class frigate. The Pelta is the moment the tour stops being jokes about suffering and starts being, wait, this is actually a good place to live. It's about 282 meters long, often crewed around 900, and it was built to do multiple jobs without turning into chaos. Hyperdrive is Class 2. Atmospheric speed sits around 800 kilometers per hour, and consumables are roughly 5 months, which isn't 2-year hermit territory, but it's enough to feel independent if your resupply plan isn't written by a guy who thinks vibes are logistics. The defense package is smarter than flashy: heavy armor plating, strong deflectors, 2 light turbo laser batteries, 3-point defense light laser cannon batteries, and 3 tractor beam projector batteries. It's also loaded with practical survival thinking, including around 16 escape pods, which is the kind of detail that makes you trust a ship on day 200 when everything is tired. The interior is modular, and that's the real lifestyle win. This frigate can shift from transport to evac ward to medical platform without the layout collapsing, which means the ship can stay comfortable while still being ready for the galaxy's worst days. Clone Wars fans know it as the kind of hospital ship that separates decent commanders from monsters, and it's tied to heavy moments like the TB-73 brainworm crisis, where even a safe ship can become a horror story. Yet the Pelta still reads clean, controlled, professional, which is exactly what you want if you're living in space for a year. Maintenance is constant, but it's the sane kind. Systems are accessible, panels open like they expect hands to touch them, and the routines feel like a workplace designed by adults. Mess halls become real social hubs. Corridors feel human. This is where the list starts feeling like home instead of survival. Number 2. The Interdictor-class Star Destroyer. The Interdictor-class Star Destroyer isn't built to overpower, it's built to control. At 1,600 meters long, it matches the Imperial class in size, but operates with just 2,500 crew, a fraction of the manpower, drastically reducing crowding and improving daily life on board. Its defining feature? Gravity well projectors. Massive systems that simulate a planetary gravity field. Activate them, and ships are ripped out of hyperspace or trapped in place, unable to jump until the interdictor is taken down. This ship doesn't chase. It makes sure nothing escapes. Block hyperspace lanes, force inspections, lock down star systems, even halt traffic for scientific scans. It's a mobile, no-fly zone. Weapons are defensive. Heavy turbo lasers, ion cannons, and point defense lasers. Escort ships handle combat. Shields are reinforced around the gravity wells. Lose them, and the mission fails. With a Class 2 hyperdrive and backup, it redeploys reliably. Lower crew and slower ops mean it can run autonomously for 2 years. Cargo space flexes for research gear, inspection teams, or prisoners. Maintenance is focused. Gravity wells need calibration, but everything else uses standard Imperial tech. Inside, conditions are efficient. 2 to 3 crew per room, short meal lines, working hygiene systems. It's still a warship, but compared to most, it's livable. And finally, the most livable at number 1. The MC-80 Home 1-type star cruiser. The Home 1 style, MC-80 is the listing that feels like a floating neighborhood with its own gravity of calm. The silhouette alone is iconic because it's tied to the rebellion finally acting like a real navy, and you associate it with Admiral Akbar energy. Professional, steady, deadly, and allergic to Imperial theatrics. It's commonly framed around roughly 1,300 meters, with a full crew around 5,420, and a minimum operational crew cited around 1,230 if you're running lean. Cargo capacity is substantial at around 20,000 tons. Consumables can reach about 2 years, and hyperdrive is a Class 1 primary with a Class 9 backup, which means your home can relocate without begging the galaxy for permission. Armament is layered and nasty, roughly 29 to 36 heavy turbo laser batteries, 36 heavy twin ion cannon batteries, around 80 quad laser cannon batteries, and 6 heavy tractor beam projectors. And the fighter capacity can climb as high as about 120 starfighters, depending on configuration. That one detail transforms the ship's culture, because hangars become a city workplace. Pilots, techs, loaders, medics, fuel crews, everyone moving with purpose. And that kind of coordinated motion makes a ship feel alive instead of hollow. The interior is where Mon Cal design wins again. The ship reads like it was built to be lived in, with space to breathe, places to retreat, and layouts that support privacy even with thousands aboard. You can feel the difference between this and an Imperial wedge, because the architecture doesn't bully its own residents. The upkeep is real, Mon Cal engineering is brilliant and idiosyncratic. But the payoff is a year where you can still feel human. It ranks #1 because it wasn't just a warship. It was a home for hope, strategy, and the command that ended the Empire. So be honest, if you had to pick one for a full year with no planet stops, which one are you taking? And what's the first thing you're changing so it feels like yours? The lighting, the galley, the bunks, or the one corridor that always smells like warm wiring? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this one, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you and your stubborn home.